1995 ended in triumph, against all odds. The Bulldogs had scaled the mountain, but triumph never lasts forever, and for Canterbury, the glory was followed by turbulence, a storm that would not only test their football, but the very soul of the club. Terry Lamb had planned to retire after the 1995 Grand Final, but when the Super League war tore the roster apart, Jason Smith, Jim Dimmick and Dean Pay all defecting to Parramatta, Lamb stayed one more year to steady the ship. It was a selfless final campaign from a captain guiding a fractured side. The rebranded Sydney Bulldogs reverted quietly back to Canterbury Bankstown. Injuries mounted, consistency vanished, and the premiership defence they were famous for fell away. By year's end, the Bulldogs sat at 10th place on the ladder, a sobering fall from champions to strugglers. It was a warning shot that this wouldn't be a dynasty, it would be a decade of peaks and crashes. The code finally split. Canterbury joined the Rebel Super League as the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, one of 10 clubs in a breakaway league that divided fans, broadcasters, and even families. They finished 4th out of 10th, losing 15-14 in a semi-final to Penrith, a brave but bittersweet campaign. Super League promised global exposure, new rules, corporate polish, but crowds were thin and costs had ballooned. Within months, the grand experiment was bleeding money and goodwill, and by 1997, peace was declared. The ARL News Limited had struck a deal, one competition, the NRL from 1998. Super League in Australia was dead after one season, and Canterbury returned to the fold where they belong. Under new coach Steve Folkes, the Bulldogs re-emerged. They scraped into the finals from 9th place, then they turned September into a theatre. Down 18-2 with 10 to go against Parramatta, Canterbury produced one of the greatest comebacks in rugby league history, going on to win 32-20 in extra time. They surged into the grand final, only to fall 38-12 to a dominant Brisbane. But belief was reborn. Folkes had forged a side built on discipline, defence and faith, and the club had found its bite once again. This was a season that reminded Canterbury who they were. They had lost a trophy, yes, but they had found their identity. 1999 brought stability. The Bulldogs finished 5th and fell 24-22 to Melbourne in a semi-final heartbreaker. Willie Talau had cemented himself as a strike centre and Steve Folkes' leadership was growing. Off the field, the NRL pushed for club rationalisation, a drive that created St George Illawarra and the West Tigers mergers. Speculation swirled around other Sydney clubs, but Canterbury refused to merge, standing tall and independent amongst all the uncertainty. The 2000 season was transitional. The Bulldogs had slipped to 11th, but the future was arriving. A young Braithen Astor made his debut, Hazem El Masri topped the club's tries, and veteran Daryl Halligan closed out his career as Canterbury's leading point scorer with 204 points scored across his career. It was a quiet season of reset, the beginnings of a new core built on discipline and belief. The Bulldogs roared back to finish 2nd after the regular season, only to lose 23-22 to the Dragons and 52-10 to Cronulla. That scoreline hurt, but so did the doubt about their consistency. Off the field, something rare happened. As South Sydney fought for readmission into the NRL, Canterbury supporters and club figures joined a Bankstown fundraiser to help the cause. Old rivals stood side by side, showing that rugby league was bigger than tribal lines. In a fractured era, Canterbury showed heart, a trait that would become tested like never before. Under captain Steve Price, the Bulldogs won 17 games straight and looked untouchable. Then came the bombshell. An NRL audit uncovered systematic salary cap breaches totaling over $2 million across the year 2000 to 2002. It was no clerical error, it was deliberate, structured, and hidden. The punishment was so severe. All 37 competition points erased and a $500,000 fine. From minor premiership favourites to wooden spooners overnight. Fans felt betrayed, players bewildered, and the NRL made an example that would echo for decades. Sponsors walked, crowds thinned, and the Bulldogs' name was dragged through the mud. Club legend Steve Morter was brought back to help rebuild trust and integrity. The players led by Price, El Masri and Anasta, they vowed that they'd never let the club be defined by that scandal. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Executive sacked, staff replaced, reputation shattered. Steve Folks kept the locker room together, turning humiliation into motivation. Players fronted cameras, faced booing crowds, and apologized to a hurt fan base. Inside Belmore, the mantra changed: no excuses, no secrets, no surrender. That siege mentality became their identity, fuel for 2003's revival and the redemption of 2004. The club had been broken, but not beaten. Canterbury stormed back into contention, finishing third and reaching the preliminary final against the Roosters. They fell 28-18, one step short, but the transformation was undeniable. El Masri's accuracy, Price's leadership, Anasta's maturity, this was a team reborn from the ashes. It wasn't redemption yet, but you could feel it coming. From 1996 to 2003, Canterbury had seen it all: triumph, disaster, and defiance. But the next chapter would symbolize the redemption to come.